Good morning. Welcome. Welcome to each one of you here in Unity Hall and to those that are joining us online from the online pews. I'm so glad that you're here. This time of worship just would not be the same if each of you wasn't here and if we weren't here together. I think there's a lot of things that we can do to tend to our spiritual selves, our emotional selves, alone, yes, but when it comes to worship, that is really a communal affair. There's something about us coming here and being together and going through the worship service, being quiet when it's time to be quiet, to speak when we speak, to sing, to pray, to listen, all that and all those feelings that come with it, we do here together. And as we gather every week, we do so mindful that the original caretakers of this land are the Nahantic and the Mohegan people. We honor and pay respect to them, their ancestors and their lineage who uphold the traditional practices, arts, and education. And on this Sunday, when we're going to delve somewhat into the power of place, we really acknowledge what we have to learn from those for whom this place was their first home. So my name's Tricia Brennan. I'm here as All Souls sabbatical minister for the next 4 months. I'm still in my beginning phase, learning my way around here, but I'm delighted to be here with you and partner with you for these next 4 months. And I'm also delighted to lead this worship service with Liz Binger, who is our liturgist today. Welcome to All Souls, where all souls are welcome. I joyfully call you to worship and invite you to rise in body and spirit as we sing the opening hymn, For the Earth Forever Turning.
Good morning. It's our custom here at All Souls to greet each other. I have to put my glasses on. I'm so sorry. I thought I could do it. I made the print really big. It's our custom here at All Souls to greet each other warmly every Sunday. And first, I would like to ask anyone who's visiting for the first time, if you're willing, to please raise your hand and let us know you're with us. Great, welcome. And we will greet you during this next little bit carefully. We won't try not to overwhelm you. And if there's anyone in the online pews who's visiting for the first time, please let us know that, and we will welcome you warmly as well. So everybody, speaking of that, now turn and wave to our friends in the online pews. We are so glad you are with us today. We are all here together. Here in Unity Hall, we bump elbows and make a joyful noise as we pass the peace to one another. Please, let's pass the peace.
Good morning. Each Sunday, we light the chalice, the symbol of our faith. And this morning, I'd like to call up Olive and Posey to help light the chalice.
She's scared.
Okay, well, she has her big sister with her.
Do not play fire, and Olive is an adult, so she can play fire.
Okay, well, I can go around to the other side. So while these brave girls light the chalice, please say with me the words. We light this chalice, symbol of our Unitarian Universalist faith, mindful that we are united in shared faith to all UU congregations in the world, And we light this chalice to remind us that everyone's light matters and is needed. Thank you, Olive and Posey. We also each week light a candle of peace. And we light this morning's peace candle for the devastation caused by the earthquakes and their aftermath in Turkey and Syria. We mourn the loss of over 28,000 lives, and our hearts are with their loved ones, as well as the millions who are now homeless. We send them our healing energy and hope that politics do not impede the help they need. Our thoughts are with them.
Story for all ages. I'd like to invite the children to come on up this way for this story. This story is called Owl Moon, and it was written by Jane Yolen, and the beautiful illustrations are by John Schoenherr. And as you all come up, that's adorable. Oh, an owl. That's so cool. That's great. I actually just wanted to say quickly to you all, you young people, that I know, imagine you are very close to Reverend Carolyn. And, you know, I'm here for these 4 months, and I look forward to getting to know you. And, you know, I'm here for you much as she was, even though I'm not her, you know. Just wanted to say that. Before we start this story, I want to actually ring this beautiful singing bowl. I really love the sound of it. And what I want to do is have us listen to it until we can't hear it. And when you can't hear it, just raise your hand. And then I'm going to start the story. And I bet as I tell you the story, you might know why I want to do this thing of listening, listening, listening until we hear no more. Here we go. So when you can't hear it anymore, you raise your hand. It was late one winter night, long past my bedtime, when Pa and I went owling. There was no wind. The trees stood still as giant statues, and the moon was so bright that the sky seemed to shine. Somewhere behind us, a train whistle blew, long and low, like a sad song. A farm dog answered the train, and then a second dog joined in. They sang out, trains and dogs, for a real long time. And when their voices faded away, it was as quiet as a dream. We walked towards the woods, Pa and I. Our feet crunched over the crisp snow, and the little gray footprints followed us. Pa made a long shadow, but mine was short and round. I had to run after him to keep up, but every now and then I'd want to call out, but I never did call out, because if you go owling, you have to be quiet. That's what Pa always said. I'd been waiting to go owling with Pa for a long, long time. We reached the line of pine trees, black and pointy against the sky, and Pa held up his hand. I stopped right where I was and waited. He looked up as if searching the stars, as if reading a map up there. Then he called, "Ooh, ooh, 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 ooh." The sound of the great horned owl. Ooh, 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 ooh. Again he called out, and then again. And after each call, he was silent, and for a moment, we both listened. But there was no answer. Pa shrugged, and I shrugged. I was not disappointed. My brothers all said that sometimes there's an owl, and sometimes there isn't. We walked on. I could feel the cold, as if someone's icy hand was palm down on my back, and my nose and the tips of my cheeks felt cold and hot all at the same time, but I never said a word. If you go owling, you have to be quiet and make your own heat. I sighed, and Pa held up his hand at the sound. I put my mittens over the scarf, over my mouth, and I listened hard. And then Pa called, "Ooh, ooh, 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 ooh." Feel free to join in on the sound effects. Seriously. Ooh, 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 ooh. Pa raised his face to call out again, but before he could open his mouth, an echo came threading its way through the trees. Ooh, 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 ooh. Ooh. Pa almost smiled. Then he called back, "Ooh, ooh, 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 ooh," just as if he and the owl were talking about supper, or about the woods, or about the moon or the cold. I took my mitten off the scarf, off my mouth, and I almost smiled too. All of a sudden, an owl shadow, part of the big tree shadow, lifted off and flew right over us. We watched silently with heat in our mouths, the heat of all those words we had not spoken. The shadow hooted again. Pa turned on his big flashlight and caught the owl just as it was landing on a branch. For 1 minute, 3 minutes, maybe 100 minutes, we stared at each other. Then the owl pumped its great wings and lifted off the branch like a shadow without sound. It flew back into the forest. "Time to go home," Pa said to me. I knew then I could talk. I could even laugh out loud. But I was a shadow as we walked home. When you go owling, you don't need words or warm or anything but hope. That's what Pa says. The kind of hope that flies on silent winds under a shining owl moon. Thus ends our story. So we're going to sing you out to class now, singing Trees of the Fields. One of the ways we tend to the fabric of this community is to bear witness to each other's lives, the joy and sorrow both. Those of you in the online pews, you can write in the YouTube chat and what you'd like to have shared here. A reminder to everybody online to refrain from commenting on people's entrees at this moment, to make it easier to follow. Those of you who are here in Unity Hall, you are invited to come up, and as you wish, if you have an intention that you want to lift up, and starting down there with Liz, take a candle and take a, yeah, that thing, and light the candles. And I've been asked to remind you that if you're at the head of the line, come up to the top of this first, so there won't be a log jam there. The circle is open, and your joy and sorrow is welcome here. Intentions that have been written into the gray book. Thinking of and sending love to Catherine as she awaits giving birth to her baby. Indeed, we are holding her in excitement and love in our hearts. Carol Richards is having back surgery on Wednesday. Please keep her in your thoughts for a successful outcome. We certainly will keep Carolyn in our thoughts. From the online, no, not yet, from the All Souls Beloved Community email, from Peggy Sheehan Flood, I would like to share a joy, she says, the birth of my third grandchild. Matthew, Annie, Zhu are the proud parents of Aiden James, born on February 2nd. Welcome to the world, Aiden. Many people are happy you are here. from Charles Schott. Forgive me if I haven't got that name right. Recovery from hip surgery going very well. Back singing with the choir this week. Awesome. I'll get the hang of this. I mean, there's so much great conversation going on here. It's hard to know when I'm looking at something to raise up. I'm thinking that Tony would like this shared. And I'm not going to try Tony's last name because I'm going to mess it up. Layoff time is over. I return to work tomorrow. I'm very grateful to have a job during these trying times. Amen. And Moira Herbert, thank you all for your kind thoughts, for your cards and your prayers. My healing has now been stunted by getting COVID. You're hearing that groan, Moira. We're groaning with you. She says this too will pass. Sandy Cohn asked for prayers and healing wishes for Kelly and kids as they start to navigate life without their young husband and father. Sandy, we know how hard that is for you, and we share in that big loss. So we take into our collective soul those intentions spoken today of a birth to be, an unexpected COVID, recovery from illness, and more. And all those intentions represented by the lit candles there, and all the unspoken murmurings of the heart. Some that are joyful, some that are sorrowful, some that are fearful, some that are grateful, and more. Each intention, each feeling is important to those who have shared and to us when it's ours personally, and thus important to all of us. We trust that the sorrows and fears we have are lessened as they are held in our common caring. And we know this to be true from our experience, even as we know how those joys and successes and delights expand when shared. It's something of a mystery how that happens, how we humble humans can actually ease each other's pain and deepen each other's happiness. And we are grateful that we can, and grateful when we do. O Holy One, called by many names in our world and in our midst here, we lift up all those intentions to you as well, entrusted they are to your tender mercies, all that is our life. May we embody love, your love, a love and goodness that is bigger than we can possibly imagine. And may that love inspire us each in our own way to be peacemakers and justice seekers who love the earth and all its creatures. Amen. Let us be together in the communion of silence for a moment.
Gary, that was a lovely selection and so beautifully played. It was all I could do not to sing out loud with you. The reading this morning is adapted from The Place You Belong To by Wendell Berry. Wendell Berry is a writer, environmental activist, and farmer who has lived almost all of his life in rural Henry County, Kentucky. It's hard to have hope. It's harder as you grow old, for hope must not depend on feeling good, and there is the dream of loneliness at absolute midnight. The young ask the old to hope. What will you tell them? Tell them at least what you say to yourself, because we have not made our lives to fit our places. The forests are ruined, the fields eroded, the streams polluted, the mountains overturned. Hope then to belong to your place by your own knowledge of what it is that no other place is, and by your caring for it as you care for no other place. Belong to your place by knowledge of the others who are your neighbors in it. The old man, sick and poor, who comes like a heron to fish in the creek, and the fish in the creek, and the heron who man-like fishes for the fish in the creek, and the birds who sing in the trees in the silence of the fisherman and the heron, and the trees that keep the land they stand upon, as we too must keep it or die. Speak to your fellow humans as your place has taught you to speak, as it has spoken to you. Be still and listen to the voices that belong to the stream banks and the trees and the open fields. There are songs and sayings that belong to this place, by which it speaks for itself and no other. Found your hope then on the ground under your feet, your hope of heaven. Let it rest on the ground underfoot. Let it be lighted also by the light that is within you, which is the light of imagination. By it you see the likeness of people in other places to yourself in your place. It lights invariably the need for care toward other people, other creatures in other places, as you would ask them for care toward your place and you. No place at last is better than the world. The world is no better than its places. Its places at last are no better than their people, while their people continue in them. When the people make dark the light within them, the world darkens. And so ends the reading.
Thank you, Liz. I wonder if that deep, rich reading from Wendell Berry made you think of some place that you belong to. Or if the Owl Moon story brought to mind a place in woodsy New England landscape that you know well. If so, I invite you to take a moment and to dwell there in your imagination. To remember what it looks like, what catches your attention there. To remember what the wind and the sun or warmth or cold feels like on your face. To remember what that place smells like, its fragrance. To remember what you hear there, the melody of sounds. As I read again the Owl Moon story and the Wendell Berry piece just yesterday, I was struck by how they both mentioned hope. I hadn't known that until I hadn't noticed that, how strong it was in both of them until I read them side by side. The story, Owl Moon, is essentially a story about going on a journey into the wild forest at night in hopes of seeing a creature of renowned great beauty and power. It's a simple story that feels like a quest, or it's mythic. And it ends with that last line: "You don't need anything when you go owling. No words, no warm, just hope." And Wendell Berry begins, his very first sentence is, "It's hard to have hope," especially that kind of sturdy hope that doesn't depend on feeling good. And then over the course of his poetic essay, he instructs us where and how to find hope by belonging to our place and knowing it well, its sounds, and the voices of the creatures who live there, listening for what they have to say. "Found your hope then on the ground under your feet," he concludes. "Your hope of heaven, let it rest on the ground underfoot." I imagine most of us have taken a walk with a small child at some point in our life. When my daughter was around 3 or 4 or 5, we would take walks with no destination planned, with her in charge of where we would go. We didn't go far. There was fun enough to be had with a stick and a puddle on the sidewalk right in front of our house. A few years later, when she's a little bit older but still willing to hang out with me, the walks were a little further afield to the Arnold Arboretum, which is close by our home, to our great good fortune. Still in charge, she would take us off the well-worn paths to create new paths where people rarely went, she told me, and it felt exciting. I don't know if she remembers those walks, those adventures, but I do. It was fun to let her be in charge, interesting to see what she found interesting, and most of all, it was wonderful to be outside, to slow down and really see and be in the world at my doorstep. Each walk was different, even when we went to much the same place, as every day and every season is different. Hope, then, to belong to your place by your knowledge of what it is, wrote Wendell Berry. He's 88 years old now, or more, he might be 89, and since 1965, he's lived and farmed in Henry County, Kentucky, not far from where he was born. He speaks about the power of place, and he speaks with an authority that is listened to for its wisdom and abundant common sense far beyond Kentucky. Few of us are as place-centered as Wendell Berry. We're a mobile society these days, moving frequently to go to school or for jobs or for love. Even when we stay put for a longer time in one dwelling, we often travel for work or pleasure. And our various devices, powered by the internet, take us anywhere we want to go in the universe by virtue of movies and photos, information, podcasts, videos, and more. It's really pretty cool what we can see and learn about our world without leaving our home. And yet, what is it that we lose by not really knowing tangibly, physically, knowing and loving our place? What do we gain when we can name all the kinds of trees in our yard or the birches that perch on their branches? What do we miss when we live mainly indoors, when we opt to stay inside when it's raining or cold? What do we gain when we're familiar with the different smells that the seasons have, each in our own neighborhood? What will be gone when the little brown bat or the blue whale, both on the endangered species list in New England, become extinct? And what is discovered when we take care of an animal a dog, a cat, bees, birds at our bird feeders, worms in our garden. We have choices about how we spend our time, what we pay attention to, what we protect or neglect, and what we come to know with an intimacy that changes everything. I've been reading this past year off and on a book called Rewilding by Micah Mortley. Mortley is the founder of the Kripalu School of Mindful Leadership at the Kripalu Center in Western Mass, that perhaps it's a place that some of you might be familiar with. His book is one part treaty, well, you know what I mean, one part opinion on what we lose when we're separated from nature or suffer from what he calls species loneliness, a disconnection from species other than human. And it's two parts, how to remedy that loss through spiritual practices and learning some interesting new skills and simple ways to reconnect with our natural world. Here's one practice that's called the sit spot that caught my attention. It's kind of like it sounds. You find a place that you can go to easily enough, some place in nature, no more than nearby, and where you'll sit for just 15 minutes. Ideally often, ideally every day, the same spot. It's like a meditation of sorts, but unlike meditation where you close your eyes and move inward, here you open your eyes and look closely upon your surroundings. You are to be still, and soon enough, the animal life that is there, the birds, the bugs, the bees, and more will make themselves known. The wind might rustle the leaves in the trees or make patterns on the grass. The sun can come out and then be covered with clouds, and that changes everything, changes the colors of the landscape. And if you're like me, your mind will wander, and you'll start thinking about what you're supposed to be doing that day. But then you tell yourself, it's just 15 minutes, and you return to observing and listening and feeling into the place where you are. I haven't quite found my way fully into this practice of sit spot, but sometimes I sit in my backyard discovering what I think I know so well, my backyard, so mundane, but really that it isn't so familiar because I don't really look at it that closely. I don't know, I found out, the names of so many plants that are there, even ones I've planted. I'm surprised at how many bees there are. Now, my neighbor has bees. I shouldn't be, but I hadn't really seen how many of them were enjoying what there is in my yard. I noticed with pain the effects this past summer of the summer drought. More recently, I'm like, oh, dear. The leak, the tiny, tiny leak in my hot tub, yes, I have a hot tub, is coming down, and that chlorine is doing damage. I am hurting my own backyard by not taking care of that. Sometimes I go off to the Arboretum, and then my 15 minutes there becomes more with the walking back and forth. And sometimes that seems too much, yet it's really worth it, because especially there, I notice how much my initial presence changes things, if you know what I mean, in the place I sit. This is how Mortali from Rewilding puts it. When you make your way to your sit spot, you create some disturbance, and the creatures of the forest are alerted to your presence. But after you sit quietly for 10 minutes or more, the forest goes back to its normal business, and you get a glimpse into a world you've become a part of. I've yet to make it a daily practice, not even by a long shot, but even those limited occasions have made an imprint on me and have made me want to continue. And I want to continue as much as I can for a year, because I'm particularly interested in seeing how things change over the course of the year. I have been in my home for 40 years. I have so much to learn about right where I am. Wendell Berry puts it this way: Be still and listen to the voices that belong to the stream banks and the trees and the open fields. They are songs and sayings that belong to this place, by which it speaks for itself and no other. For many people, the natural world is the place where they find solace and peace, where we can shake loose the preoccupations and worries of our daily lives and spend time under huge trees or beside running water, sitting on a big rock, warmed by the sun, laying down in a field of grass, gazing at the sky. You know, it doesn't have to be huge. It can be truly just the tree in your backyard or your neighbor's plot of land. There we can gain perspective and see things more clearly. And the natural world is often where we find the holy, God, mystery, the grace. Sometimes the best way to get close to what we might call the divine is to remove all that stands between us and the divine. The to-do list, the fast pace, the mental chatter. A walk to a nearby park or woods or your own backyard, if you have one, can restore us to ourselves, which is to say, restore us to our souls, open us up to what is created and what sustains us. The most essential practice, spiritual practice, is to pay attention. That's it. Pay attention. I don't know exactly what a prayer is. I do know how to pay attention, wrote Mary Oliver. And in doing so, she echoes a long line of spiritual teachers who remind us that it begins and ends with awareness, with being present to life as it is now, here in front of us, beside us, around us. Present to the people we share life with on this planet and with the non-human life of plants, animals, water, sky, and land, available to us just outside our doors and by getting to know the places we call home. Let us take ourselves there and thereby come to know, love, protect, and enjoy the natural world that gives us all that we need for life, inspiration, and pleasure. No place is better than the world. The world is no better than its places. The places at last are no better than their people, while their people continue in them. Let us be people, for as long as we continue, who listen to the wisdom of our places and are worthy of the places we call home.
Before we move to the offering, I'd like to invite Susan Bergy to come forward, there you are, and to give her testimonial around stewardship.
Good morning. It's me again. Y'all are getting sick of seeing me here. There is a way to stop that, and that's by pledging. So this is less of a testimonial and more of an update. We are halfway through our stewardship campaign. Woohoo! And we're grateful, incredibly grateful to everyone who's already, provided their financial commitment. 54% of the households have responded, which is awesome, and we are 75% of the way towards our goal. So, which is wonderful. I don't think I've mentioned the actual dollar goal before, so now we're gonna, we're almost there, so I gotta get down and dirty. So our goal is actually $420,000. That's how much it takes to keep the lights on and keep us staffed for every year. So we're at, those of you quickly trying to do the math, we're at 317. So if I had a slide, because someone suggested I do this, which try to show the pledge distribution, because people were curious. So, we've got everything from, under $100 up to, a good number that are over $7,500, right? So that's kind of the range of what we're seeing. And we value every single one of those pledges, which is why I've been putting a lot of focus on trying to get 100% participation, because really, it's important that we all support it in the way that we can. But the hard part is, what if we don't meet our goal? And we can get off that screen now if you don't mind. So Janet, our treasurer, is developing the budget, and there is no fluff there. That $420,000 is really a bare bones budget, and it's what we need to do what we do. And I just, as we get that we, have a ways still to go, I just want to put the seed that if we don't reach that goal, what happens, right? We had some amazing music this morning, did we not? I mean, think about that, we pay for our accompanist, we pay to have a tuned piano. All of this costs money. I know I wouldn't keep my job if I wasn't getting a cost of living increase every year, right? So that's why we ask, in our requests, we're asking people to up the amount, because a good part of our budget is salaries, and we are a justice-seeking organization where we try to provide a living wage. We need to walk the walk and talk the talk. And also things like benefits, right? We provide benefits to our staff. That's really, that's our values, and we want to do the right thing. So in order to do all this, we need to all provide what we can as we can. And one of the things that's, kind of on the table this year, because Caitlin left, is, will we be able to support another full-time associate minister? So again, I hope I'm being mean and, putting in your head. We need to have this, and we need to budget it. We can't move forward on the things that we do if we don't have the pledges to support the budget. So that's me being mean. And all this is to say, I really want 100% of us to reach out and provide what you can to support our budget in the next 3 weeks. The deadline is March 3rd, so that on March 5th we can celebrate and be able to move forward on all the things that we really want this congregation to do. We have so much to be grateful for, and we do such good, and we need to be able to continue it. So thank you.
As a former member of the stewardship team and chair of the stewardship team, I want to make sure we appreciate all of the hard work that they're doing this year and every year to take care of this. So each week, one way that we express appreciation for this faith community is through giving. We're grateful for your generosity. And to prepare us for the offering, we say these words together. We give to the work of all souls. Our work weaves the fabric of love called community. To this end, we dedicate ourselves and this our offering. The offering will be gratefully received.
In 2 days, it's Valentine's Day. Our closing hymn is There Is More Love Somewhere. Please rise in spirit and sing it with enthusiasm in your heart. Those of you here and those of you at home, the chalice. Very good. Keep those hands up. I'm just kidding. Keep them up. Thank you, Liz. I so need the help. Go for it.
That's okay. Please join me in saying the words extinguishing our chalice. Our service has ended, but our work is not yet done. May our spirits be renewed and our purpose resolved as we meet the challenges of the week. The chalice is extinguished until once again ignited by the strength of our communion.
Would you now, once again, reach out, cognizant that the reaching out touches many people, many places that are important to us. May you know the places that are yours in the world, places where you are soothed and healed, places that you protect and thus by bring more hope into your lives and to the world. Amen.
And now please be seated and we will enjoy the postlude.
Announcements. Susan, do you have a, yes, good. Not Susan, but yes.
I am Susan Beatty. And
Oh.
when I say April 15th, don't think taxi. All right. You can't hear me? They can't online. Oh, when I say April 15th, don't think taxes, think tag sale. So start saving up all your goodies, and you'll be hearing more about it online. I mean, in the e-blast and in the newsletter, as well as every week. We'll just drum it into you. So, thank you.
Thank you, thank you. Awesome. Do you know there is a town hall meeting today? Right after service, right here, very exciting, hearing about the building project, an opportunity to ask questions, learn and ask questions. Want to announce that last Friday night's folk night raised $1,500 for Start Fresh. I know, that's so great. And apparently it was lots of folks were here from the congregation and beyond, and it was great. Oh, you should know that the performers, the 8 performers from Maggie's Guitar, donated their time and talent to the night. It's awesome. Next week, the Good Neighbor offering is the Alliance for Living. The item for the Food for People is tinned protein. Think tuna fish and other salmon, things that are in tins and are protein. Next week, there won't be faith formation, but children are absolutely welcome to attend, and childcare is available for little ones next week. I should say there's childcare during the town hall meeting today as well. Have I forgotten anything? Go. Quick as a bunny. Okay, over to you. Thank you. Thank you. We were a good team. Good doing it one more time with you.
That was lovely. Lovely, lovely.
What's that?
Lovely.
Thank
Very
you.
nice.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Karen. Oh, thank
And
you.
perfect for today.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
perfect.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
That's for you, right? Oh, good, it has a little handle.
Oh, yeah. Isn't it great?
Yeah, all right. Hi.
Hi. Yes.
I want to tell you, Michael Montgomery is
Really?
yeah, he was a student at Con when I was working there.
Was he? He went to Conn College?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was my assistant, and then he went to my department there. And he is a soul connection.
Oh, my God. You know, I had that feeling as I was reading, and I'm like, oh, this is someone I'd love to
So, George,
meet.
this
How nice
sounds,
that
this is
you
really
know.
important. And I'm on the town hall in my head. Can I call you? I just, it won't stick. Yeah, it won't stick.
I contacted
But thank,
him,
but,
and it was like,
yes, thank you.
oh. And now his father is
So for those online, grab your coffee. Those in the room, grab your coffee and settle back in.
I'm going to recommend that we don't do coffee hour in between these.
I know, I know. I wasn't,
Yeah. The mic is low.
thank you. Yes. So I'm Karen Ethia Waring, and I'm pleased to be serving as your president of the board for All Souls, and I'm calling this town hall to order. It really has been a twisty country road to get to in our building process. We started, Janet, when did you get the date? When did we start our capital campaign? Right.
And the engineers, the pledge drive started in 2019.
So, that's okay. And I'm just going to say 2017, approximately, when we started to ask for pledges for our capital campaign. A lot of creativity has gone into this work, and we ran into COVID, and we ran into the astronomical increases in building supplies. And then we all waited at home for a while. Over the last year and a half, we've been talking about what do we need now and what do we want. So that's what we're here to do today. We're here to tell you about the work of our current building team, many of our past members and some new members as well, and to take the temperature of the congregation and hear what you ask. First of all, allow you to ask questions, and then to answer any of those questions and anything else that you think is important. During our previous listening circles and town halls, what we heard is we need gathering spaces, we need safe, healthy spaces, and we don't want a mortgage. And I think you're going to be really happy. So I want to say thank you to Neil Overstrom, Jonathan Harger, Vic Maralder, Janet Maralda, Sid Gardner, Bob Bunting, Carol Bunting, Clara Vento, Debbie Marshall Baker, and Ted Olinsu. And last but not least, our current team leader and fearless leader she is, Katrina Burkaw, and I'm going to turn this over to Katrina.
Good morning, good morning. Pretty nice crowd that will say, okay, coffee later maybe, but we're going to have our town meeting. It's good to see you. It's good to see people. I know some are attending on the online pews. You could see at the end of this list of wonderful, wonderful people that I'm having the privilege of working with, that if you would like to join us, meaning if you'd like to join the building team, or if you have a particular interest in a part of it, as we go through what we're working on, just talk to any one of us, and if everybody's input is welcome. There. Thank you. Next. So the overview of what we're working on right now. HVAC, that's heating and cooling, and air quality, and is a big part, something that came up during COVID, and we wanted to make sure that that is safe in the classrooms, the offices, as well as Unity Hall. The choir director's office, which is tucked into that closet back there, and we've already begun that. Communications and safety infrastructure, making sure that our cameras are working correctly, that all the things we need for safety are there, and also for communications, the Wi-Fi. You know, we're now doing live streaming all the time. It's now a permanent part of what we do, provides access to people, and so we want to make sure that equipment is up to snuff. Community room, and then the parking lot. We need to redo our parking lot, and also want to convert some blacktop to green, to permeable surfaces that the water can soak into. Next. So what kind of money are we talking about? We have $692,000, $913 in our capital campaign account. That's after paying off our mortgage that we did in 2020, and includes $10,000. We, at our last town hall meeting, the sergeants mentioned the let's see, what is it? Financial development. Thank you. And we invested some of our capital campaign money. We decided to hold off on doing anything till we knew, till it settled out after COVID what we wanted to do, and we invested in the community, this program that helps people affordable housing and stuff like that, and then helped us as well, because that made $10,000 with our investment. And thank you to Janet Beebe for leading the charge to sergeants for the suggestion or the idea. Right now, what we're working on, the air quality improvements. You'll hear a little bit more from Jonathan in a minute. Can we go back to the budget? Sorry. The storage, so that's about $15,000. The storage renovation that Vic and Sid and Janet are leading is about $11,000, including a mini split to heat and cool the space. Communications, $20,000. Community room, we're working today will be the next step toward getting a detailed figure, but including a contingency. We are estimating that at $485,000. Parking lot, we'd love to have more money, but basically we'll see what we can do once it's phase 2. And so right now it looks like about $160,000 for that. You can see at the top that the anticipated but not included money, not yet in the bank, is perhaps $160,000 more that people indicated that they would contribute, and then some people were waiting to see exactly what are you going to do with this money. So next, thank you, Jesse. Air quality. Jonathan, would you like to say a few words?
Okay, just to go in order here, well, I'll go in order what we have done. The UV lights are installed, so those are already in and working. The MERV filters, which we thought would be first, has been a little longer, but they have now said that they should be in next week. So at the end of next week, we should have both of those in. It was an interesting process in that researching it, some people thought one was what you needed, and the other people thought the other was what you needed, so we figured we'd be safe and do both.
Would you explain what those do, Jonathan?
Oh, okay. The ultraviolet lights, basically, think of a fluorescent light except very strong ultraviolet, and it sits up in the HVAC system where the cooling coils are, which is where bacteria tends to collect. And as the air comes through there, it sterilizes the air as it's coming through. The MERV filters are basically a microbial filter. They literally will filter out microbes, viruses, et cetera. Because of that, we have to have it serviced a little more often because they filter out finer material than the regular filters. Okay, CO2 sensors, that they've given us a bid, but with all the stuff that's been going on, when we had asked about different things, we were glad we got the first two quick, because on something like this, or if we'd had to replace a unit, they said, well, we're about 6 months to a year and a half out on being able to get these things. However, they have the estimate on the CO2 sensors. What they do is there's a sensor in the room that determines if the CO2 level is getting above a minimal point, at which point it dumps in more fresh air. That's essentially it. But what it does is it saves a lot of heat energy because you're not dumping in the fresh air when you don't need it. And that actually applies only to zones 1 and 2, which are the offices in RE section. This has its own unit. It's the big unit. And it had an energy wheel in it, which they found was broken and was going to cost like $25,000 to replay. And they said, nah, it's not worth it, particularly since you don't use it as often. And what's happened is because it doesn't work, you dump in more fresh air than you would normally. So adding that to the filters and the ultraviolet lights that are already in, you've got good air here. And the costs were good. They came out to less than what we thought, but then they did, just for reality's sake, let us know that if those units go, the three combined would be like $200,000. And their life expectancy is 20 years, but they said, you know, it can be 20, 25, even more, and it can go sooner. So we have 3 units, 2 smaller ones and the bigger one, that we do need to have some contingency funds in mind because they are, at this point, 17 years old. Just one other aside along that's related but not. We put in the solar panels a while back, and we have a site. In fact, I'll see about see if we can get it put on the e-blast if you want. We can go in and it graphically tells you what's doing and what's happened, and you can check for the whole year and everything. And so far, since we put those solar panels in, we have produced a little over 25,000 kilowatt hours. Not bad since it's been winter. Okay, thank you.
That's the culmination of many meetings with Jonathan and emails back and forth and early mornings here when it helped with getting the ladders to get up on the roof to take care of that stuff. So huge thanks to you, Jonathan, for doing that. All right. Vic, did you want to speak, or I can? We have long wanted to improve our choir closet. Before we got to where we are today, we had gotten to where you could only go into there sideways because there was so much stuff stored in there. And Janet's helped lead us through sorting and getting rid of things we were no longer using that had accumulated in there. Vic and Sid built a storage loft, and that's well on its way, but still in process there. So that's one of the things that we're using some of our campaign funds that had long been a goal. Storage is very short in this building. Thank you, Sid, Vic, and Janet. Can we have the next slide? So, the big item, a community room. So, last time when we had an almost finished design and went through planning and zoning and all kinds of stuff, the biggest expense in that, which got more and more and more expensive, was if you put a shovel in the ground, we have some contaminated soil, contaminated with coal dust, and that became very expensive to do. So I first heard about this idea from Perry, who said, you know, I'm kind of thinking maybe we can rearrange our interior spaces and do something in All Souls. And also Perry, of course, is an important, he's on the committee, but an important thing, because how will that affect faith formation classes and stuff? And he said, they're also evolving in the way they do things, and that a bigger community gathering space for the kids was also a priority for him. And so he actually is like, this will get a lot of use for faith formation as well as us grown-ups there. So it's, as you can see, there's a partition. The wiggly line on the right is the opening sound insulated half-core panel doors into Unity Hall. The kitchen is, our beautiful, beautiful kitchen is getting redone a bit as part of this. Part of one wall is getting, well, the pass-through will now be into the community room. And we've stolen a little room from the kitchen to do it. we are hoping to, so you can see it's the calming room, the butler room, and Emerson, plus a little bit from the kitchen, and and where the coat racks are. So we'll have movable coat racks, still a place to put them, but no longer a separated space as we have right now. And the solar tubes, that's a way to bring natural light into this space, as well as some beautiful lighting. And thanks to Bob Bunting, who's online today. I know he's here and ready to answer questions, as for many iterations, I said, of these sketches that are like, could you show this a little different, that a little different? We want one door to do towards, we need a window to show, whatever it is there. The left side of just for orientation, the left side there is south. So that's in the winter, always an important thing, the south facing. Next. So here is a sketch from the previous plan, not exactly like what we're doing, but just we didn't have anything else on the inside to show. And there are some elements that we're retaining. The wall that opens to Unity Hall, the pass-through to the kitchen, the carpet, like this carpet that we have, our new carpet here in Unity Hall, which is easily cleaned and healthy. And acoustic ceiling, keeping in mind to try to make it so that we can hear each other once we gather and we have a lot of people in this space there. And that door into Unity Hall, the sound insulated door, will actually help absorb excess chatter as well. Edie Twining was the interior designer we worked with before, and really, it's thanks to her, some of the beautiful colors you see around our current building. Next. So we're working with Carlin Construction. Last time we had talked, we'd gotten bids from a number of companies and chose them, so we're continuing to work with them as very receptive, interested in communication and making sure we get what we want, and also that they had the best price as well. In talking with them, they think it'll take about 2 months to get to the final plan stage. Working with the architect, we've already hope to have our first meeting with the architect on February 21st, and then about 3 months for construction. So in a perfect world, we will be doing, they'll be doing the permitting this spring and construction this summer. And so we hope to be back in by the end of summer. And we can stay, as it says, during the construction, we don't need to move elsewhere. It will be a bit disruptive. There will be stuff going on, but they are going to put up a plastic wall to minimize dust. We won't have use of the kitchen. We may be able to have coffee or just have iced tea or something this summer there, but we will be able to stay in the building. Next. So phase 2, we're looking for a holistic plan. We're going to do it in phases, but to try to tie the whole thing together. This is our kind of our front yard out there right now. And we're talking about putting the dumpster on the other side, of the far side of the parking lot, tucking it in over there. And next, I've got three pictures, and thanks to Neil Overstrom for doing these. What it might, just a general idea. We haven't defined all this, but it is going to look attractive. It's going to look nice. And so you can see the door in the middle there. That would be the exit from, we'll still have our main entrance, but this will be the exit from the new community room right over there. Next. Yep, thank you, Jesse. The same as you can see. With plants, we're talking about, converting some of the blacktop to green space. We would definitely be adding sidewalks to get from from Unity Hall to the main entrance and vice versa, from the community room and from the parking lot. We hope to do a bioswale. We're working with Maggie Redfern from New London Trees and the Connecticut College Arboretum. who knows a ton about native plants and is cognizant that we want something that will not be require a ton of maintenance. We need stuff that is safe to walk on. We want it to be impervious where it can be, but safe, you know, sidewalks and stuff as well there. And it's your turn for questions. Thank you.
So, we're going to close enough to the mic, Jesse?
Oh, yeah.
We're going to ask that folks come up and use the mic with questions and comments. I'm going to start with one. We've got one very quickly question online. First, a comment. Danny says that the HVAC and filtration system makes him feel so much safer about coming. He's had a lot of problems post-COVID and still wears a mask everywhere. Tony Soromoski asked, how often will the air quality be checked? Just curious due to COVID still being active and flu season upon us. I think, do you want to answer that or is it?
Well, they're going to do check filters and things 4 times a year.
Right. So the MERV filters will be changed 4 times a year. So we increased the cost of our contract a bit, but those filters will be changed. So that's one way that we know that the air quality will be good. We also know that there's a lot of air coming in, and we're going to be better at managing the air coming in because of the CO2 filters, as well as the ultraviolet lights. Hopefully that answers that question.
There's another question from Tom in the chat.
Thanks. Will the community room be available for extra seating for a large service? Well, I would think so. This wall is going to be able to be folded back. So yes, there will be a direct line of sight. You know, the 2 rooms can serve as one large room.
Yep, so there will be more room when we need more room in Unity Hall, and there will also be more room when we need more room. The new community room is not as big as the one in the other plan. It's about 900 square feet, 850 to 900 square feet. And sometimes we will wish it were bigger, and we'll open the doors and, you know, that wall will open up, and so we'll have Unity Hall. So that is a big help in making a small room bigger.
Come on up.
I apologize, but I'm relatively new. So my first question is, what is the actual purpose of the community room? What's it going to be used for? And my second question would be, is there any thought to, I noticed that some smaller projects were done by volunteers, and I love doing stuff like that. And I was wondering if any of this we could take on ourselves, like some of the demo work or anything like that.
Thank you. The community room, Carolyn came in recently when I was all excited about working on the outside plans and greenscaping, and she's like, we need a community room. Whenever we have events, whenever we have memorial services, weddings, elder journey was the particular one that she had so many different things gather here. The people, the greeters and stuff who break down the chairs in Unity Hall to set up tables, they feel like it would get used a lot because they have to do that frequently.
And coffee
there.
hour. Coffee
and for coffee hour, it would be used there. By the way, the new room would be about this big. It's a little more than a third of Unity Hall. And it would be used, the community room would be, with that sound insulating wall, would be used for faith formation a lot. It can be used for faith formation during the service.
I want to ask what will happen to the classroom that's currently in the greenhouse room? Is that going to be placed in a different location?
Well, Mr. Youth Group Advisor. Right now, the thought is that the Ackerman room would become the youth room because we'll lose that, but we're still gaining the community room to use during faith formation. And one of the things that we haven't had is a bigger space, because during the pandemic, we've been, and as faith formation has evolved, we've been doing more activities that involve action and movement. And we don't have a space big enough to do that inside during the winter when we can't go out to the Peace Garden. So we'll be able to use the community room for classes to do our activities, and the Ackerman room can be dedicated to the youth. It won't be used as a classroom for the younger kids anymore.
Excellent. I have two questions. One is the folding walls or partitions. Is there any acoustic protection with that for noise pollution? So if you have a service that's ongoing and then you have another small group session in the community hall, is there going to be noise pollution between the two rooms as a point of distraction? Do we know about foldable walls?
That is a priority, that we want a wall that will function in that way.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that's the kind of, we're spending, the wall is about the folding partition is about $40,000 because
wow,
it's a really nice one.
Excellent. I have a question for you, gentlemen. In terms of long-term maintenance costs and forecasting that into the budget for the air filtration system, because I know it is costly and repairs are very needed at times to replace UV lights, filters, et cetera. Is that built into the forecast budget for the next 5 fiscal years, or I'm just curious? And then same with the plants. In terms of native plants, it's a high maintenance cost. Sorry.
Actually, the filters and UV lights are fairly minimal themselves in terms of cost. The filters are only costing us actually about $600 a year more because of the maintenance. The lights presently are about $1,200 each, but they last for multiple years. So they won't be, the problem will be, as I mentioned, if one of the units goes, that's where we have to be ready.
Excellent, thank you, appreciate it.
Very good questions. Platt, you can come up if you want to just make a line in front of the Black Lives Matter.
I know in some of the earlier plans, you were considering being able to use the kitchen and have outside events that are catering or things to make money. Is that still part of the plan, to have outside organizations use the community room and kitchen for a fee?
Yeah, I think we're planning to continue. You've noticed in the last year that we're using glass plates and mugs and glasses and everything rather than a lot of paper. If there's a big event here, the caterer would bring the dishes and stuff like that. We don't have to plan for, to serve 100 and something people. We'll just serve ourselves. Right, plan for our own congregation, but that certainly is an opportunity to do more that way.
But it will be open to other organizations. Okay.
So our spaces, I know this because I have, in another job, rented space here for events. So our spaces are, we don't advertise a lot, but our spaces are leasable for organizations that need space, and I think that will be an ideal additional space or a larger space for that.
Okay,
yes.
Thank you.
I am just wondering whether access to Unity Hall is still going to be through those doors, and is there how are we getting from that hallway, if that's where it's going to be, into the new space?
Excellent questions. Jesse, could you put, I guess, the picture that shows the community room, that one. So actually maybe the two before that, because then you can, well, the one you can see Unity Hall too. It's up at, So there, when we were talking about doing this, one of the iterations of it was what if the hall becomes part of the community room, which would add a lot of nice square footage to the community room, but we said especially if there's faith formation there and people coming in perhaps a few minutes late to church, and that we needed to maintain our hall. So you can see that there's a couple of doors into the community room. We're going to work with the architect, as I said, in the next couple of weeks. So this is our current iteration, and it might evolve a little bit. But there's the doors into there. There's still the door from the hallway to the outside on the left. There will be doors, planned double door in the partition that lines up kind of the back of the aisle here in Unity Hall. And there will be, we believe, 2 doors in and out of the kitchen, and then the back door from the kitchen, these doors here in Unity Hall. So lots of doors there. And we'll still have the hallway. We just said, we need that to be a hallway and for access to the bathrooms and everything. Yeah. I know, and you can see here a little bit how big it is compared to Unity Hall. So we got, the community rooms like this. Liz?
Real quick, I think. Will the community room be large enough for us to take back the meals that we do for the community meal center? So, because don't we do 2 a month? We do a Saturday meal and will it be large enough to accommodate our being able to actually host those meals? Maybe it's not a quick question.
That's an interesting question. At the moment, I'm seeing a head shaking, maybe not, but okay. Maybe. And one of the other that reminds me to say what Reverend Carolyn had said, we have ideas, we're tweaking, we're working on our ideas, we're talking to an architect, we have people of various backgrounds and skills on the thing, and still, we'll build what we think is going to be useful and wonderful, and then we'll move into it, and things might evolve and change a little bit. So some of those decisions might get made down the road.
So Carol's back there, I don't know if she's shaking or nodding, but I think the Community Meal Center, they like volunteer groups to come and do the meals there because
I thought the Saturday one was different, but maybe not.
No, it's like they're set up, and because also people are in the community are very familiar, they know to go there. So when it's in other places, it gets confusing, before there was that center place. But adding to that, though, there are special meals that are done for different community groups at, say, Thanksgiving time. There are churches that host meals for that. We would have the ability to host events like that. So possibly a Thanksgiving for the homeless or, things like that happen. Pancake breakfast, yeah.
Hi, did I miss something, or is there a coat room?
There will not be the coat room we have now, but we will have coat racks on wheels, movable coat racks, and when there's a big event, we'll probably move them over to, what's it called? Foyer. To the foyer, or we'll move them out of the way if we need to set up tables or something in the community room. So when you come in, our main entrance will still be our main entrance, and so somewhere there we'll have the coat racks.
Okay.
Yeah, it's instead of the dedicated space we have now, it will become flexible.
Where would there be enough room for big things like we're planning for the 15th in the sale and my craft fair and things like that take up a lot of space? How would we maneuver that?
This project is a compromise because we're not adding to how much space we had. We're just repurposing some of the spaces. So that will continue to be a challenge, is where to put everything. I think we're talking about, it's short term, like people can't bring stuff till Thursday for the Saturday sale or something because of space limitations. So we have not figured out a way to solve those in a big way.
Although the project that's already happened, the renovation of the Unity Hall storage space is going to make a big difference immediately, because there's now a whole nother level of storage in there, which is enabling that lower part to get cleared out and be open for things like that need temporary storage. I mean, it's still not a ton of space, but we've almost doubled the storage space we have in there.
And we still have Unity Hall, so we can set up a tax sale in Unity Hall.
Yeah, yeah, most likely.
And the community room, yeah.
And the
So now we've made it bigger.
Yeah.
This is a question that's only, I'm not sure in what way it should be related to this project, but when we paid off the mortgage, that means we're not paying a mortgage monthly, annually. Where is that money?
That money's what saved us during COVID from having a negative balance sheet, is that it's been said, that we reduced our budget.
By how much? How much was our mortgage payment before we settled it?
About $4,500
A month.
a month.
$4,500 a month for our mortgage.
Yeah, so that's about, what, $55,000 a year? Okay, I was just wondering, so we don't have that anymore, right? We don't have that payment. So when we do our annual budget now, we don't even, that's gone, right? That expense is gone, right?
It is relevant to this because, in the sense that, we'd love to do more, we'd love to have more money, but the decision was made, thank goodness we don't have that mortgage that we have to pay every month. That's, the people in the finance committee know, and trying to put together a bare bones, we still have a bare bones budget that you're going to hear more about in the next months. But thank goodness we don't have that, that obligation every month, and it's still, we don't have enough money to do everything we want.
Gotcha, okay. And just quickly, whoever was presenting at that time suggested how important it's going to be that that we find the money to have a associate minister, and they said full-time, and we didn't have full-time, we had half-time. So I just wanted to clarify that, because the word full-time was used.
That's correct, that's correct.
So the money for the mortgage, when we paid off the mortgage, it was at the very beginning of COVID. We were able to get through that year without a large loss, with a very small loss. That was a negative budget. The next budget was also a negative budget of $12,000. But we were able to, with not having the mortgage, give a little bit of a raise and up our dues to the UUA, which we are so far lower than what we should be doing. This year's budget, as I'm working on it, is also being used for a little bit of raises, and we still cannot increase our amount to UUA. We are saving on electric, but gas has gone up. We're doing okay, but with a mortgage, we would be using our reserves. Without it, we have a balanced budget, and that's what we want.
Thank you so much for that, for Janet, for that explanation, right? How do all the pieces fit together? They're fitting together well. And it's thanks to our finance committee, our building committee, who's been very creative in making sure that we can get ourselves more elbow room, right? More space to commune, indoors and outdoors, safely, healthily, without taking out a mortgage. Right, so that's where we are. Let me please share that the chat is active, and I want to make sure that these voices are heard and questions are answered as well. So, all right.
Can I just say one thing?
The mortgage, as I believe it, I was on the board at the time, was also paid off so that the bank would give us a loan. And that was something that needed to be done so that we could get that pre-construction loan. So.
Right. So, brief overview, brief history. Our original building project was going to be much larger. It was and complicated for so many reasons. We thought we would end up taking out a mortgage. And then COVID hit, prices went up. We have a complicated land, soil out here. Lots of reasons to make that prohibitively expensive. So that was one of the reasons that we paid off the mortgage, was so that we might take another one. We did not. And I think we're all happier about that. I want to be aware of time, and I want to just share these. So think about last thoughts or questions that if we need them. All right. Karen Jones asked, will it be possible to implement some type of safety barrier between the parking lot and the windows to Unity Hall? And Bob Bunting answered that question, and that's on the radar for the phase 2, which is the outdoor work. So we are thinking about that. Danny wondered about a service window between the kitchen and outdoors. I'm not sure that will be feasible, because I think that wall that's for the outdoors is going to have more cabinets on it when we rearrange the kitchen a little bit. Is that fair? Yeah. But lovely idea. So building committee, I'm sure, is taking note. Tom Lesko asked, do we lose the common room? And yes, we will lose the common room. Danielle Butowski noted that it wasn't used very often except as a hiding place for kids playing hide and seek. Not the original plan.
I can add one thing to that, too. Also, we've realized, now we're streaming all the time, and we have technology that's different than when we actually created the common room. And so we've talked about, screens in another room that might be available or something like that, where you don't need the one-way glass just in today's world as much.
Right. So, last questions, comments. Are we excited about this? We're here. We're here. So many hours, creative thoughts, angst, wondering, curiosity. Your dollars have gone into this, right? And we're doing it. The air is safer. We have more storage, better space for the choir room. And we won't have to bunch up for coffee hour. And I think we're going to have some beautiful outdoor spaces. So let me tell you what our plan is. This Thursday, I will ask the board to take a vote to proceed with the next step, which will be to pay Carlin, who has been fabulous with us and patient and just all the things you would hope. To pay Carlin to get an engineer and an architect to meet with us to put all of these ideas together. Not all, but the community room piece, getting ready for the outdoor piece, right? So that would be the next step. The board will vote on that on Thursday, and then we'll meet with Carlin and those contractors very soon. What do we think? Thank you. All right.
Karen, if people want to find out more information, what email should they send their emails to?
So right now, I'm monitoring my secretary at allsouls.net. We also have bc@allsouls.net for the building committee, and Bob Bunting monitors that for us. And once again, I want to do a shout out to Neil Overstrom, who did the scope of work. who's working closely with me, mentoring me to make sure I'm like, is this okay? That, and he's just so helpful before he goes off on his boat. And on the and all just such a wonderful team, and feeling like we have the support of the congregation. So
Thank you, Katrina.
thank you.
And Katrina, and Katrina really has kept the ball moving and rolling and organizing everybody together for all the different pieces that have to get done at different points in time.
Yeah.
So thank you, Katrina.
Go home, happy Super Bowl Sunday.